Moving on to motorsport now, it's estimated that the Las Vegas Formula 1 Grand Prix this weekend cost around $500 million US. That's around 9.1 billion rand. But it had its fair share of issues, from late race times and cold temperatures to a screw on a manhole cancelling practice on Thursday. So how do other series around the world get on? Well, certainly paving the way when it comes to street circuits worldwide is Formula E. Oli McCrudden is the Vice President of Host Cities for the series. He joins us now. A very good evening and welcome to Newzroom Afrika. I suppose that when we see how Formula E have been able to year in and year out race around the world, it makes it that much more of a question mark over, I suppose, Las Vegas, where we have seen street circuits being raced on before. But how have you guys managed to do it, and maybe what went wrong for Formula One this weekend?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that it's not an easy job, and I think the product and the way it looked over in Vegas last weekend was fantastic. I think chapeau to the team that put the race together and got it on the ground, because you know, whatever anyone says, it's a hell of a challenge to do a street racing circuit. We at Formula E have been doing this since our inception. It's what we were set up to do, and we pioneered some good technology and some good system, and we developed the way of putting in a street circuit in a very short period of time, and we've done it very well. It's about planning. It's about understanding what some of the challenges are, and we've had over 105 races now where we have done that. We've managed to really specialize in it and become the real world experts in doing it. So you cannot underestimate the amount of people, the amount of moving parts that there are to do something like that. So I think first and foremost, it's fair play to them. They took on a huge project. They invested heavily into it. And it's great. It looked really good in the race. Some of those teething problems will happen the first time you do these things, that's for sure. But ultimately, I think the product speaks for itself. It was spectacular.
How have you guys managed to get it right? Because, as you said, there were some teething problems, I suppose, we saw in Las Vegas. But that aside, you, as Formula E, have managed to see through a lot of the teething problems around the world, and you're going into season 10 now. So how have you managed to do that, and what have some of those significant teething problems been?
Well, look, when we started, there weren't many people that were doing street circuits on a regular basis. Obviously, things like the Monaco Grand Prix has been going on for 70-odd years. And when you can do it time and time and time again, you learn where the problems are going to come from and you can anticipate them. Things like manhole covers, for example, you know, we look at those during the planning phase. We look at all of the civil works that are required around the street circuit, but we might weld the covers down and get them into place. Some cities, they get them screwed in and looked at. But it's something that's on our checklist of things to do, and we make sure that that those are looked at. Human error does come into it from time to time, let's face it. But that's some of, when you get the experience of doing it over and over again, you understand where some of those pitfalls can lie, and you address it in the planning phases. It's critical. The planning phases goes on for 12 to 18 months ahead of a race, and then when we build our racetrack, we tend to do them in around about 2 weeks. We don't have the luxury of months and months to put it down. When we raced in Cape Town in February this year, the promoter team there and our operations team were on the ground for just over 2 weeks putting it together and then getting it away in just over a week. So, you know, we do it very quickly as well, but it just comes down to experience, and we've spent a lot of time perfecting that.
Yeah. How difficult is it to ensure safety on a street circuit? I mean, we mentioned manhole covers and the kind of precautions that you need to be taking, but it does seem that street racing all over the world, because you're on public roads, no matter how many safety precautions are taken, it does give an added layer of safety that's required for the drivers.
For sure, absolutely right. I mean, you're going into a location that wasn't designed to be a racetrack. When you're building a racetrack from scratch, you can use all the space you have, but in a city centre, when you're doing a street race, you're constrained by the geography that you have around you. So safety is paramount. We work very closely with the FIA, the world governing body of motorsport, to ensure that our racetracks are safe. The materials that we use, the concrete blocks, the catch fences that go around the track, are designed to deflect material back onto the track if anything was to start to get off the cars and go up into the air. you know, we spend a lot of time looking at that. We look at the impact speed of cars should they lose control going into a corner, and if anything is too heavy, then we modify where we can the racetrack. And we don't cut corners when it comes to safety. Safety is paramount. Motorsport is inherently dangerous, but we do it because we know how to do it, and we spend a lot of time looking at that aspect.
Can you tell us a little bit about Season 10? You guys have got a couple new circuits. We're hoping that South Africa will be back on the calendar at some point in the future after the success of Cape Town. But what can we expect in Season 10?
Well, Season 10, we're going to do the most number of races that we've ever done in a season for a start. You know, bearing in mind we've been around for just 9 seasons so far, so we haven't the luxury of being around 70-odd years like the guys in F1. So we're growing all the time. The calendar should be formally announced at the end of next week, so I can't prejudice what comes out of the FIA meetings. But we are going to be adding in a couple of new circuits there. One has already been announced, which is Tokyo, which for us is huge. You know, getting into Tokyo, if you think of electric and you think of street racing, Tokyo is a natural bedfellow for Formula E. We are super excited for that. Been working for a long time to try and make it happen. And there's another race that's going to come up that will get full announcement by the end of next week, which we're all extremely excited about. Cape Town, unfortunately, is not going to be on the calendar for Season 10, but we're working very hard with the promoter team there to make sure that we can get everything right for us to return. It was a spectacular race to get down there in February. The fans were just so into it. The enthusiasm that everybody had on the ground was fantastic. We want to get back. You know, when we race around the world and we go around the planet, put these street races on in cities where we need to be making sure that people understand the benefits for electric vehicles, for the clean air issues, sustainable mobility. You know, coming to Cape Town is spectacular. With Table Mountain in the background, that's exactly what we're looking for in terms of iconic locations that tell everybody that this is a global sport addressing a global problem. So we're absolutely up for it. We're committed to try and get back into Cape Town. We're looking forward to that. But I advise everybody to keep their eye on FIAFormulaE.com next week for the update on the calendar. And we go racing in January. We start in Mexico on the 13th. So please tune in.
I suppose it does help, though, when it comes to your sport, if you want to do a comparison with Formula One and racing on a street circuit like they tried to do this past weekend, and that's the fact that your cars don't make half as much noise as Formula One.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a lot of the reason why we can do what we do in city centres. You know, we don't have huge decibel levels. In fact, what actually happens, and we've got data that shows that the ambient sound over one of our race weekends compared to the benchmark in the city in that same location drops, which is obvious when you think about it. There's no traffic going around on the streets and our cars are racing. So yeah, we have that benefit. Obviously, there's no fumes coming out of the back of the car. We are sustainable mobility at its best, and we're pushing technologies to those limits. So we can race in places where maybe other race series can't get to. In London, we race through the inside of a building, for example, at the XL London Centre there. You couldn't do that with any other race series in the world. It's unique, and the spectacular experience for the fans, they get to sit there up close inside the building, also helps for the UK weather, of course, is absolutely fantastic. They love it, and the buzz that they get coming out, being so close and seeing these cars going past at such a rate of knots, they really get a thrill.
Oli McCrudden is the Vice President of Host Cities for Formula E. Thank you so much for chatting to us.